And welcome back to another episode of the Swandingo Files. Today I have LaVerne Toombs. She is VP Director at the American Heart Association in Louisiana. So, a very smart woman and a very special guest. I appreciate you coming on, LaVerne.
Well, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I thank you for the compliment. Sometimes I wonder if I am that smart, but just thank God for his favor that he's bestowed upon me over the years.
Well, you're clearly crushing it. So, you've gone to a couple different universities. You have a very high title, so you clearly are a very successful woman. And I do like to hear the story, how it led you to getting to become successful, some of your past life, and just anything you want to share. And try to keep it somewhat light too, if we can.
Sure, no problem. Well, I started this journey in the late 90s. I actually was thrown into a nonprofit organization where I had to learn how to raise money and write grants. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that many years later that I would actually be doing this for a living. And so started out in the nonprofit sector, worked in that particular industry for a while. And then in 2002, I started out as a volunteer and worked on a campaign for a United States Senator. I was a volunteer. They hired me to work on the campaign. It's a statewide campaign in the United States Senate. This person was going into her second term. She won her race. She hired me as her deputy regional manager, which allowed me the opportunity to oversee her office. And with that office consists of 13 parishes that I was responsible for. The person who was the regional manager at the time was applying, or should I say, in the process of going to law school. He then went on and I took his place. I became the regional manager. I stayed with the United States Senator for 13 years. Had the opportunity to travel all 64 parishes, which you all would call counties. Had the opportunity to staff some of the most powerful people in the world and meet some of those wonderful people. 4 or 5 sitting presidents and first ladies. Met the most healthiest, most wealthiest person in the world, just to name a few. Unfortunately, in 2014, she ran for re-election for her 4th term, and she lost. And so I'm now 55 years old. When I started with her, I was 41, 42. And so I was wondering if somebody's going to hire a 55-year-old. Lo and behold, like 2 weeks after the election was over, a parish president, which you all would call a mayor or a county administrator, over a population of about 55,000 citizens, asked me to take over a department, which I did for about 6 months. Then somebody resigned. She asked me to take over that department, which is purchase and procurement, which I had no idea what that was all about. And then she ran for re-election. She was running for re-election for her 2nd term as parish president. She won that election, and then she appointed me as her chief administrative officer, which I served in that capacity for 4 years, which means it was 2 women of color only in the state of Louisiana that oversaw a parish. I did that for 5 years, or 4 years, with a full 5 years. And then while I was ending the term in the parish, a dear friend of mine called me, and I always had these phone calls. It's quite interesting. All of this is phone calls. And said, hey, there's a HBCU, which is Historical Black College, it needs your services. They wanted me to raise them $1 million. But not only that, to raise them $1 million, but also to help them with their accreditation. They were like $7 million in debt. They put together a team. I was a part of that team, and I was there for 1 year, helped them raise about $700,000, revamped, and they were able to receive their accreditation, and they're doing just flourishing because of the teamwork and everyone coming together to make that university stay in existence. From there, I had made up my mind. I didn't want to work hard because I hadn't had a life in almost 18 years. Had 2 phones, and I was at the will of the people of the great state of Louisiana, which was a wonderful opportunity, and I enjoy having that servant heart, being able to serve people. I then was a consultant for the New Orleans Regional Black Chamber of Commerce. I did that for about 7 months, And I only did that for 7 months because it was a lot of work and it was taking me back to what I said I didn't want to do. I was all about work-life balance. A friend of mine called me up and said, hey, there's a position that you may be interested in. It's something that you enjoy doing. You love raising money. Apply for it. So I did. And I was hired to be the VP of Development for the American Heart Association, primarily oversee several social type of events like Go Red for Women Luncheon, Heart Walks, Circle of Red, and Heart Ball. And again, our ultimate goal is to raise money, and our goal is $1.2 million. So with that being said, I'm very much engaged in a lot of activities and other organizations. I will always be civic engaged and to those things that are very near and dear to me when it comes to people and homelessness, hunger, women issues, children. Those are things that are very near and dear to me because of my own life struggles in my younger years. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm a mother of 4 wonderful adult children, 2 girls, 2 boys. I have 5 grandkids, and they keep me pretty busy. So that's it.
Excuse me. Sorry. So let me ask you this: being such a career-oriented woman and purpose-driven, because you clearly had, a lot of goals you wanted set, and you wanted a lot of stuff you wanted to accomplish over time. Do you ever think that it affected your ability to be a mother?
My career had nothing to do with me being effective as a mother. I think what the challenge of me being a mother had to do with toxic situations in the early years of my life. I had no real example, even though my mother is my idol and my role model. But she raised me the best that she knew how. She raised me the way my grandmother raised her. And so because I did not have those particular type of skill sets, as well as I was so busy looking and searching for a void in my life, it prevented me from being an effective mother because I had a lot of issues and baggage that I didn't know what to do with that impacted me at being an effective parent.
And I was just asking because only reason because I see myself working a lot, way more than I want to, and I have 6 kids, um, all range from 11 to 2 years old, so they're still young. Also living in my house, also, all still taking all my money. So, but I just want because I always feel myself getting pulled away to work or something else, and it's just I always worry like, am I giving them enough attention, guiding them the way I need to? But and that's all I was wondering because you've done a lot in your life in a short amount of time, and that's all I was wondering is if it any way impacted your ability to be a parent, I guess, not just a mother, just a parent in general.
Well, I think one of the things too is that I didn't understand about priorities and being able to manage my time. It really is about priority. And at the end of the day, one of the greatest lessons that I've learned in my older life is the fact that family you'll have always. We run behind that dollar, right? We're so committed behind the dollar that we forget about the people who really mean so much to us. And so, we can still have the dollar, right? But we always got to understand that those kids, they grow up really fast. When I
Yes, they
think
do.
about my kids, my oldest is 41 years old and she has a 21-year-old son. And we have to work, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about priority. And if that means that you have to designate a day to say, this is the time that I'm going to spend with my children, that means a lot to those kids. And I can tell you from my own experience, when my children's father and I divorced, I had the girls and he had the boys. There's a real void in my boys' life because their mother wasn't there. And there's also a void in my daughter's life because their father wasn't there. And so it's kind of like damn if you do, damn if you don't, because you don't want to stay in a situation that's toxic And then it has another type of impact on your kids, right? So you have to make a decision. But to go back to your original question, I think it's all about prioritizing. And family is all we have. And I'm telling you, pay now or pay later. That's the way I see it. And I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up the void in your daughter's life due to not being the father enough, son because not being the mother enough. I didn't grow up with my mother, and there is definitely a void. But I saw how my father treated other women, and I always vowed not to treat my wife that way. I've been with my wife 13 years now. Even after 13 years, we still can't be separated, which is rare for 13 years and 6 kids. But I can definitely see there's some stuff I'm missing due to not having a mother figure around, and it's good to hear that, from somebody else too. So, because I think that's an issue that people need to really focus on is two-parent households, and at least if you can't make it work inside the house, at least try to co-parent the best you can, and for the kids' sake, so that way each are in each other's lives. So, because I mean, there's still stuff that you miss as a girl and as a son if you don't have both parents in there.
Yeah, I was destined for a two-parent household. But at the end of the day, your kids become adults. They may have some resentment when they're younger, and they grow up with that resentment because they don't know the story, right? They just know that you weren't there, and you're just nothing more than a sperm carrier. However, when they become an adult and they begin to face some of the same issues that you were faced with, then you have to make a decision in regards to I stay in the situation for my kids, or do I go and still try to figure out how I can be a co-parent? And of course, when I did this with my children's father, it was in the 90s, and we didn't know nothing about no co-parenting. However, though, we did make a pact between the two of us, is that we weren't going to allow the children to play against one against the other. Now, I don't know where I had the sense or the wherewithal to understand that, but that I remember telling him that if I say no, I need you to say no. If you say no, I'm going to say no. Even if I may disagree with him, I'm still going to say no, because I'm not going to allow the children to play one against the other. And it worked out very well. And he agreed with that. And to this day, we do that. The other thing that I did not do, and again, I don't know where I got this wisdom from. Obviously, God must have put it inside of me, because it wasn't taught. I did never, to this day, will never speak negative about my children's father. Okay, never. And they know now that they're adults, their father back then. Now, he's not like that today, but he was something else back then, right? But even with him being something else back then, I always find a way. And even they say, Mama, you always taking up for him. I said, no, I'm not taking up for him. I'm just speaking the facts. It's the fact that, yes, that's the type of person he was back then, but he's not like that now, right? And he's remarried. His wife, who he has been married to almost 20 years, would never faced what I faced, okay, when I was married to him. So those are two things and the third thing is that I didn't force him to pay child support. Now, again, that's, everybody has their choice on how they want to go about doing that. But I made that decision because I knew that he was going to remarry, and I didn't want to take resources away from his family. So I just had to struggle, right? But then child support, didn't speak ill against him under no circumstances, or in the fact that we were always on the same page and not allow the children to play us. You on mute.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that even happened. I know where you got the wherewithal to come up with those things. That you're a smart woman, and you're very highly educated. So you think outside the box, clearly. So, but let me ask you, what made you go to Grambling State University over, HBCU over any I guess, a traditional four-year university.
Well, Grambling State University is a four-year
Yeah.
institution. And actually, I was introduced to college life. I was raised in a very rural community. College was not something that my mother even talked about because she only went through a third grade education. And she felt that the greatest accomplishment that I had is that I graduated from high school. So she was happy. She came from a generation where people didn't seek education because that was not part of her environment or the environment that she was surrounded by. So, you know, when you graduate from high school, you're 18 years old, you need to get married and start having children. That was her whole concept, right? But I knew that it was more to that. And I knew it was more to that by looking at other people and the fact that I wanted to go to college because I wanted to go to college for several reasons. One, to get out the house. And not only that, but I had a vision. You know, I had a vision about what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do with my life, even though I was voted from my high school peers that I would be the one most likely not to succeed. Oh, yeah. So I went to Grambling State University. I was there for one semester. And the reason for it is I got married. I got married when I was very young. I got married at 18. But I did not allow me, you know, getting married for me to not pursue the things that I wanted to pursue. So when I dropped out of Grambling, I went to Louisiana State University at Shreveport. And actually, I was going to two different universities at the same time, which is crazy. So I was going to LSU, which I didn't, LSU Shreveport, and I was also going to Centenary College as well, and working a full-time job and married. So I have no idea how I was able to do that. But when you're young, you do that kind of stuff, right? Because I had a vision. Now, even though I had a vision, and I tell people all the time, even young people, you know, you have this vision of what you want in life, but life has a tendency to kind of dim that vision. And then in some cases, black it out where you don't think that that vision will ever come to life. You have people that speak death in your life. I had someone tell me that I wouldn't pass the bar exam. I wanted to be a lawyer and I wanted to go to law school. And I had a judge to tell me you would never, at the time he was an attorney, he then became a judge and then wound up going to prison. So, so you know,
Okay.
yeah. So you know those type of things. So it's amazing when I look at my life of how this journey has been quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you do definitely got an interesting story and everything, background. You got, I mean, what town did you actually grow up in? Was it Homer?
Yes, it was Homer, Homer, and I spell it
Oh,
because there is a Homer in South
oh,
Louisiana.
oh, I know where Homer's at. I've been there. Well, been through it. I don't think I really
Mm-hmm,
stopped. So,
mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
but I know I lived in Louisiana for a little bit. I went through, and it seemed like one thing. I'm still kind of new to the South. I live in Texas now. I'm still kind of new to the South, but I've never been to Louisiana. One thing I loved about Louisiana is like I was in Leesville, Louisiana by Fort
Oh
Polk.
yeah. You
Well,
must
I
have
was
been
stationed at Fort
very.
Polk. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been
Hence
to
the back,
Louisville. Mm.
hence the background. Or my background, sorry. But it seemed like the further south I went, it's like the less and less they could speak English. And it's like this guy came up to try to talk to me when I was on my motorcycle filling it up, and it's like, what? I don't even understand you. It's so I don't know what do they call that language down there?
Well, they have the, you know, Creole, they have the Cajuns. Cajuns has that French, broken French type of language, and it is somewhat very difficult to understand them. And it's interesting because that's in what we call in central Louisiana. Louisiana is divided up three parts.
Oh, I did
And
not know
that's
that.
North Louisiana, where I'm from, Homer, Shreveport, Monroe. Um, Central Louisiana actually starts right at Alexandria.
Hmm.
So Alexandria is kind of like between north and the southern part of the state. And then Lafayette area, that's Cajun country. And then even like in Leesville, for instance, Leesville can be considered somewhat central Louisiana, Breaux Bridge, those areas like that. And then you in South Louisiana, which is New Orleans area. But then you have those real other Cajun people that live like in Lafourche Parish, Morgan City. Their French is real strong. Yeah, so it's interesting. Our state is really interesting. It's a very interesting state with, as we say, it's a mixture of gumbo. It's just a pot of gumbo. It just have a interesting culture.
I never heard that analogy before. Pot of gumbo. I love gumbo. I ain't gonna lie, but only from Louisiana. So sorry, people up north don't. They try. They can't do it. So, out of all the hats you've worn, which hat was your favorite one in your career?
Working for the United States Senate.
And
it was a lot. I mean, interesting enough, you know, our office in New Orleans was considered like the flagship. And the reason for it is because of, one, the senator family lives here in New Orleans. So our office saw her more than anybody, number one. Number two is that we were an office that was faced with all sorts of disasters. We had Hurricane Katrina, Gustav, Ike. We had a major oil spill. We had another hurricane, another ice storm. So we were always on top of this, always being faced with major catastrophic disasters. And so our office really helped with policies and procedures that people are being benefit from today, from SBA, FEMA, so on and so forth. So yeah, my 13 years were just awesome. So yeah, that was an experience. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever, you know, work in that capacity. At my 13 years, I had a chance to go to the White House and meet some very interesting people. So yeah, I would say that.
so, do your kids kind of take after you, or how well do they behave compared to, are successful compared to you?
I have some very interesting children, okay? And I say that in a positive way. So my oldest daughter actually started out, she wanted to be a dentist, but she wound up being a professional mixologist in Houston, Texas. And she did that for a number of years. And interesting enough, I had no idea how much money bartenders make. And of course, you know, she does not, her title is not bartender. Her title is a mixologist because that's what she does, and she does it well. And she became very known in Houston. No matter where she would go, her customers would follow her. But now she works for HGTV. And the reason she works for HGTV is because of my second child. Her and her husband had two shows on HGTV. And so now they're considered HGTV stars. And then she went on after her two shows to become the interior design producer for HGTV. However, her and her husband are being sought out to do a project. Hopefully will be announced very soon. And I'm really excited about it. My son, who was a awesome baseball player, but unfortunately, different circumstances preventing him from going to the pros. He was really up for the draft at a very young age. But you know, his dream was to be a professional baseball player. But his other dream was to be a husband, and a good husband and a father to his children. So, and that he is the best father that you can, I can't even begin to tell you what an awesome father is. He has a 10-year-old who's soon to be 11 next week, and he has a newborn. So he's married and has a beautiful wife, and someone
Congratulations.
Been with since they were in junior high school.
Oh, wow.
My youngest son, who's quite ambitious, a hard worker, owned his first home at the age of 27. You know, got involved in real estate, and he did that very well. Now he works for, I think, a major CN, which is Canadian, some major railroad company. He was a safety engineer, and so he's doing that. And again, you know, he's always an entrepreneur, so he's always trying to figure out his new hustle. And so yeah, so they're very innovative. They all are different. I think my second child, Mary, we sound alike, exactly alike. It's funny when people would watch her on the show, they would hear her voice and they would think that was me.
You-
And we act a lot alike.
oh,
Interesting.
oh, sorry.
But my
What's
oldest
the
daughter looks like me.
her show called?
Her first show is Going for Soul. That's
Okay.
the first show. And the second show is Two Steps Home.
Two steps.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 steps home. Okay. I have to
And you
remember
can
that.
find you can look them up, and they're on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, I just wanna see it. Just to see
Mm-hmm.
it, just see if there's any resemblance. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is.
so it seems like success breeds success. So your kids seem like they're very ambitious, go-getting, and career oriented and successful up to this point. And I wish them even more success. So
Yeah, me too. You know, I'm proud of my kids. And, you know, at the end of the day, even though as parents, um, you know, our kids learn a lot and they see us and they say to themselves, I don't want to do that when I grow up. And so there are certain things in regards to my daughters in my life where they say, you know, I don't want to do that when I grow up. And it's not a bad thing, but then on the other hand, they learn a valuable lesson from the things that they saw me, you know, that they witnessed, and they didn't want to have to go through that themselves. So I'm very proud of all four of them.
yeah, after seeing my father and everything he did and everything like that, I made a conscious effort, and my mother, um, not to be like them at all. They were never married or nothing. You know, long story short, that's just broken household. So I've always made the conscious effort to be a better father and be a better husband than what they ever were, what those two ever were. So, but
Mhm.
so since you live in Louisiana, and I love Louisiana, it's my favorite state. Even though I live in Texas now, we will be back in New Orleans at some point. I promise you. What's your favorite part of New Orleans to visit for future reference? So we know, me and the wife.
Oh, well, I always tell people to not go where the tourists go because, you know, everybody wants to go to the French Quarter. And that's okay. I mean, if that's you want to go to the French Quarter, fine. But locals, you know, if you want to hang out with the locals, and I know when I travel, I always go where the locals go. I don't want to go where, you know, uh, tourist attractions unless
Mhm.
it's something that's historic. Now, that's me. But, you know, Frenchman Street, I enjoy Frenchman Street. It has great restaurants, they have live music, and that's where the locals go. It's kind of like the French Quarter, but it's more, doesn't have all that certain type of behavior, if you will. It's very family oriented, even if you want to take your kid
Mhm.
to Frenchman Street. Some of my favorite restaurants, of course, is Peche, Peche. It's very different. It's very good. It is probably one of my favorites. I always tell people, you know, get on the streetcar and go down St. Charles Avenue and look at those beautiful homes. Go down
I've
Canal Street and Canal
been down
Boulevard.
there,
Go to
and
the
oh my
museum.
God, those are
Yeah,
gorgeous.
go to the museum. And then if you want to, you know, like a cultural experience, you may want
Hmm.
to check out Treme, which is the oldest free people of color colony in the world. And so, you know, go to Treme and understand the history, Congo Square, because New Orleans has a lot of history, right? They have a wonderful African American museum there in the Treme. And so again, you know, just not and they also have the Hispanic component of New Orleans and the Asian American or Vietnamese community. So again, you want to have a complete experience. Also, if you want to go outside of New Orleans, I highly recommend that you go to a little parish called St. John the Baptist Parish, where I was the CAO of, but it has a treasure there, which is called the Whitney Plantation. Now, I'm not a big fan of plantations. However, I am a fan of this one. And the reason for it is because it really tells you the story about people of color enslavement. So, and it's in depth. It's very good. And so I highly recommend that. And then, you know, maybe get on the riverboat, go down the Mississippi River. That's an awesome experience. And I tell people, if you don't have any money, get on the, what they call it, the, oh God, you know what I'm talking about, when you put your cars on and you got
a ferry.
Ferry, I'm
Yep.
sorry, thank you. A ferry, but it kind of gives you somewhat of the same experience, somewhat, a short ride. But if you're on a boat, it's a different type of experience. Yeah. But again, New Orleans has a lot of, just a lot, you know, especially it's known for its cuisine. So everybody loves the food. Yes. My oldest son and his friend was here last weekend, and you know, my oldest son is not a big fan of New Orleans. I guess because he got a bad taste in his mouth from people who came to Houston after Katrina. So he's still gradually getting into it. But when he comes, he always want to go and find a great place to eat. And so, you know, I just give them a list of recommendations. But yeah, this is a wonderful city. No matter what the media may paint it to be, you know, crime ridden and all this foolishness, we're no different than any other metropolitan city.
No, I went New Orleans and we had a blast. Went to the aquarium. Still the best aquarium to date in New Orleans.
I have to agree with you.
Yes.
And I'm not being biased, but it is. I agree.
Oh no, I know you traveled and I know you've seen a lot, and the fact that even you say that puts a little bit more weight behind it. But I just the people down there. I grew up in the north in Illinois. You don't talk to your neighbors really much at all unless you're from a small town. But I mean, people are just rude and they're just not nice people. Come down to the South and random people just walk up to you, talk to you. They'll open a door for you. They're kind. They don't care about really anything. Just, hey, just chat, have fun. And I just fell in love with the culture. And we wanted to move to Louisiana, but I don't know why we settled on Texas. I don't know. Maybe one day, but it's such a nice place. And I do want to get away from New Orleans. I do like the history of New Orleans and all that stuff. I do like seeing some of the African American history of that place. Just I have something to show the kids too. Just see, you know, our history of America. Even though it was a stain, it's still part of their history. Mm-hmm. I mean, my wife is Native American, so they've learned a little bit about their history, right, which they're only half. Mm-hmm. So, but still, it's a part of their history. So, but correct. I mean, it's also fascinating, and I can't.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
You make me want to just get up and go right now.
Well, we have like I said, I tell people don't just stay in New Orleans. It's much more than New Orleans. We have, for instance, Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is in North Louisiana, which is the oldest town in the state of Louisiana. Has great culture, great history. You know, I can go in Grand Isle, believe it or not. Grand Isle runs right along Gulf of Mexico. It takes you 3.5 hours to get there. It's in Jefferson Parish, which is right, I would say less than a two-minute ride from where I live. However, Jefferson Parish is the largest parish in the state of Louisiana, and Grand Isle is a place that I used to go often for vacations in the Gulf of Mexico. It's right there. People would have their little their houses there, what we call camps, and it's just great. So it has a lot to offer. It's wonderful.
Yeah, New Orleans definitely has a whole different culture to offer, and I do suggest anybody and everybody get down there if you haven't been, and at least spend a week. You can't take it all in a weekend. You just can't. You really can't even in a week, but I mean, at least a week will give you a good chunk of it.
Right.
So one last question. What is next for you? You're very energetic and outgoing. What's next for you now?
Well, I thank you for that question. There's three things, and I've been praying and talking to God about this. I'm gonna continue to put it out there in the universe because I believe that when we speak, that it comes back, right, good or bad. So one is that my goal is to be a professional storyteller. As you know, I did a TED talk and I did a She Talk not too long ago. And then secondly, I am in the process of writing a book, and I'm praying to God that it'll be a New York Times bestseller. So I'm speaking that in existence. And then thirdly, I tell people all the time, and I'll ask myself, LaVerne, are you delusional? But everything that I do is all about a story to benefit and empower people. And so my third one is to be a supermodel. And so those are the three things. Those are the three things that I have put out there in the universe. But to go back to your question, to have more speaking engagements, right, like this, an opportunity to talk about a particular subject matter, about my life, whatever the case may be, and finish this book, and so that I can share my stories and hope that it get in the hands of women who have gone I've gone through what I went through in the early years of my life, even all the way up to now, and just serve people, serve and raise money for worthy organizations, not just for the American Heart Association, even though I'm compensated for that, but as well as organization that impacts women and children so that they can have a better life. So that's it for me. Enjoy my grandkids, spend more time with my children, and live my life to the absolute fullest.
You are definitely doing that, and you're a very noble person. And I love sitting here talking to you. How can somebody get a hold of you if they want to follow you or anything?
Yeah, they can follow me on my Facebook, Instagram. I post quite often. And so I'm looking, I just did my webpage. And so one of my colleagues, I don't know if you know Ira. Do you know Ira Bowman?
Oh, I've heard the name. Yeah, I don't know him, but I've heard the name. Yep.
So Ira is going to be looking at my website. So I'll have that up going in the next 30 days, hopefully. And then I'm going to start doing some other stuff. I was thinking today, how can I become more visible rather than the socialite? Okay, or people want, okay, well, what is LaVerne going to wear? Let's see what LaVerne is going to wear at this event, which is great. And I got to try to wrap my arms or hands around how I can market that, where people will want my services when it comes down to those type of things. So, yeah.
So, well, you have a lot of goals and a lot of aspirations, and don't take it the wrong way, somebody of your age, sorry, I
That's
know, not supposed
okay.
to mention, but you still have so much more to go, and that's very inspirational. And it should be inspirational to anybody, and you definitely need to get the story out there. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully talking to you again someday.
Sure.
But this is going to wrap up this episode of the Swandingo Files with LaVerne. Probably going to see her as president of the United States someday.
No,
So
you will not.
she says that, but
I'll work for the president of the United States, but I will not be president of the United States.
all right, right here, right now, I'm calling BS on that because she's going to be too big of a person
Oh my
to
gosh.
sit
Thank
back
you.
and
Too sweet. I appreciate
yeah.
you.
So, but that's it for today. Everybody have a good time, and I'll speak to you later.